Hello, today I'm going to talk about the Byzantine Iconoclasm, the Church of St. Sofia and the Monastery of St. Mary Peribleptos. I start with the Byzantine Iconoclasm. The Byzantine Iconoclasts were two periods in the history of the Byzantine Empire in which religious and imperial authority opposed the use of religious images or icons between the Orthodox Church and the temporal imperial hierarchy. The first iconoclasm occurred between 726 and 787, while the second iconoclasm occurred between 814 and 842. Byzantine iconoclasm began with the prohibition of religious images enacted by Byzantine Emperor Leo III and continued under his successors, and was accompanied by widespread destruction of religious images and persecution of supporters of image veneration. The papacy remained firmly in favor of the use of religious images throughout the period, and the whole episode widened the growing divergence between Byzantine and Carolingian tradition in what was still a unified European church, as well as facilitating the evolution of or elimination of Byzantine political control over parts of the Italic peninsula. So, what is iconoclasm? Iconoclasm is the deliberate destruction between a culture of the culture's own religious image and other symbols or monuments, usually for religious or political reasons. People who engage in or support iconoclasm are called iconoclasts. In contrast, people who reverence or venerate religious images are usually referred to as icondules. Um, the Byzantine term for the debate over religious image means struggle over image or struggle of image. Two very marked sides were established, the iconoclasts and the icondules, who defend the creation and use of religious representation. The repercussions of the conflict were not minor, but affected different phases of the society of the Byzantine Empire. The tragic losses for the history of art and the persecution of image worshippers are often highlighted. The intention of Leo III was to perfect the confessional life of the empire by means of police with a Christian foundation. Life at the time, the fundamental point was the opposition to idolatry, which is a grave sign. It was argued that the representation of Christ consisted of profanation, since his figure was strictly unrepresentable, given that it is impossible to capture the hypostatic union between the human and the divine person of Christ. That is to say, if only his carnal aspect was represented, his divine condition was annulled, and if an attempt was made to symbolize his heavenly reality, then necessary incur in falsification. Human materials and capability cannot penetrate the mysteries of faith. The purity of faith was sought. The incumbents defended the holy image allowed to fulfill the confessional objectives in a licit and healthy way. They argued the hypostatic union and the representation of Christ as God and men are not themselves affected by art. Before the Edict of Law 3 in 730, the controversy already exists, but the emperor remained on the sidelines. Nevertheless, after a year he convoked a election that concluded with the decision to prohibit the reproduction of images of Christ, the Virgin, and the saints. From this point, the conflict began to escalate. Patriarch German of Constantinople opposed the endorsement of the decision and was sent into exile. At first, the iconoclast policy was modern and was limited to replacing the image with the cross. However, An event occurred that unleashed the conflict. Lottery ordered to change an image of Christ located in the Chalice Gate, the main one of the Grace Palace of Constantinople, for a cross, and during the task a liturgation took place that ended with the death of a soldier. The Iconoclasts involved were executed and became the first martyrs of the imperial heresy. It shall be noted that the existence of the events is historiographically doubtful, doubtful, coming to be considered an ideological creation post factum. In 741, Leo III died, and his successor and son Constantine V accentuated the iconoclast policy. Constantine V launched an iconoclastic campaign in 752, taking effect in the capital and the province of the empire. The intention was related to the political and religious centralization of Constantinople by suppressing particularist sentiments. In 754, Constantine V convoked the Council of Hera which, despite its dubious anonymity, concluded with the condemnation of icondulia as idolatry. Constantine V died in 775 and was succeeded by his son Leo IV, who maintained a moderate iconoclastic policy, did not leave the prohibitory edict but reevaluate the cult of the Virgin, and the persecution ceased. However, the idea of dynastic and institutional stability linked to the iconoclastic reform began to falter after the death of Leo IV in 780. So next with the next topic, that is the Church of Saint Sofia. The Church of Saint Sofia, it is one of the masterpieces of Byzantine art. Its meaning is divine wisdom and is dedicated to the second person of the Holy Trinity. For almost a century, it was the spiritual center of the Byzantine Empire. Cathedral of the Patriarchs, scene of the most of the important state acts, and frame of a splendid ceremonial in which the power and dignity of the theocratic empire were manifested. The first church of divine wisdom, Hagia Sophia, was founded by Constantine and was consecrated in 360, but burned down in 404. It was a basilica with a wooden roof and had been conceived in an ambitious manner. The emperor made many offerings, gold and silver vessels. The first church of divine wisdom, Hagia Sophia, was founded by Constantine and was consecrated in 360, but burned down in 404. It was a basilica with a wooden roof and had been conceived in an ambitious manner. The emperor made many offerings, gold and silver vessels of large dimension, and many coverings for the holy altar woven with gold and precious stones, and also several golden curtains for the doors of the church, and other of gold cloths for the outer doors. The Saint Sophia Temple is a dark red building in the shape of a basilica with a cross, plan, and 3 altars, built in the highest hill of the city at the end of the 5th century under the reign of the Byzantine Emperor Justinian. In the 14th century, the church gave name to the city, which during the Turkish domination became a mosque, until 2 earthquakes in the 19th century caused great damage and it was abandoned. In front of the church, during the 16th century, the Georgi was born, and not far away in 1873. The Apostle of Freedom was hanged, to whom later a monument was erected. Restoration works began after 19 In its interior we can find ancient frescoes with natural motifs such as of flowers, trees, and birds. Next to the church wall is the monument of the Union soldier, and nearby is the tomb of the nationalist poets and writer Ivan Basoy. According to science, the church Saint Sofia is one of the most brilliant works of early Christian architecture of the Balkan Peninsula. It is the most grandest and paradigmatic example of Byzantine architecture whose name means holy wisdom. The architects were Anthemius of Tralles and Isidore of Miletus, who were both geometricians, mathematicians, and science. The plan is described The plane is described in a rectangle in the center of which there are four large pillars that support the high central dome on four pendentives. On two opposite sides of the central dome are a series of semi-domes and apses which descend in height and act to support and carry the weight of the central dome, so that the drum can be dispensed with to create a diaphanous interior space that seems to expand. The weight is also lightened by the use of lightweight materials, brick and porous tiles. On the other side, there are two tribunes with which the liturgical ceremonies can be observed, and in front there is an atrium. The height of the central dome is 55 meters, an achievement that exceeds the 43.20 meters of the Roman Pantheon, and that will only be equate with the technical revolution of Gothic architecture 6 centuries later. Inside, the decoration is very luxury, in contrast to the sober exterior and similar to later Islamic construction. The 40 windows in the dome give the interior a great luminosity that contributes to the sensation of lightness that we perceive. The mosaic decoration reinforces this sensation. The dome, on the other hand, has a clear symbolism. It represents the sky, the universe, while the prayer room is an image of the earth. Now with the final topic, the Monastery of Saint Mary Peribleptos. The Monastery of Saint Mary is a late Byzantine monastery in Mistra, Greece. It was built in the mid-14th century by the first despot of Moria and was named after Saint Mary Peribleptos, one of the most important monasteries of Constantinople. It is dedicated to Saint Mary of Peribleptos of Constantinople. The monastery was built on the side of a cliff with a cave supporting the structure. This architectural style is known as the Mistra style and is prevalent in several churches and monasteries in the area. It is characterized by its resemblance to a castle. It is constructed of ashlars with inland tiles. The intricacy and unique variation in the shape of the exterior structure create an interior surface with the monastery that lends an ethereal quality to the frescoes that cover the walls. The extensive frescoes that cover the interior of the monastery of Peribleptos were created from 1350 to 1375. These works have been linked to the artistic school of Crete and Macedonia. As art historian Annie Labat says, spaces moving are treated with a Western feeling in these frescoes, because the absent and other surface create dramatic spatial surface. The artists who paint this work had the advantage of presenting New Testament images fluidly from one fresco to the next,